One of the greatest sporting events on the world calendar is the Melrose Sevens. Founded in 1883 by Ned Haig, the Jedburgh butcher who was a member of the Melrose Rugby Club, it's become the most famous Sevens tournament in the world. The sport of rugby sevens is now an Olympic sport, and each year international teams from all over the world take part in the IRB World Series. Every 4 years, the IRB Rugby World Cup takes place, with the Melrose Cup being the trophy awarded to the winners. In 2022, the Melrose Sevens returned after a 2-year break due to the pandemic. Gone was the old grass pitch, to be replaced by a new 3G surface and floodlights. It was a new beginning for the tournament, and we were there to capture the flavour of it, talking with key people involved with the organising of the event, world-class players about what it means to them to play in the Melrose Sevens, and also delving back into the history of the event. But let's start with Andrew Haig from Kelso Rugby Club, whose great-great-great-uncle was Ned Haig. And he was some character in the village.
Yes, I think so. Going by all the stories from my father and my grandfather, he actually met Ned when he was a young laddie in Melrose at the Butchers, I think. It's just I suppose something to be proud of, you know. You can, it's especially we're a rugby family and into rugby, and I love my sevens, so it's something to be proud of.
We'll get into that in a minute, but the legacy that he's left behind. He had one brother. One brother,
yes. And as you say, the legacy, I mean, he would. I think he'd be amazed to see that it's now an Olympic sport, and the commercial, it's all over the world. Obviously, probably Fiji's the biggest. I think it's their national sport is sevens. So, from what he started back then to what it is now, it's pretty amazing.
And what can you tell us about Ned himself and what actually happened that time where he had that eureka moment?
Well, there's a few stories amongst the family. He was obviously born and bred Jetherman, butcher, and then ended up in Melrose somehow, and obviously got affiliated with the rugby club. But the story we heard was that Melrose were struggling financially, and they had this idea raising the gate money to start with, and the game that they raised the gate money was the gala game, and the story goes the gala supporters boycotted it because of the price of the entry fee. So it's back to the drawing board for Melrose to see if they could think of any more ideas. And originally the story goes it was his idea was written in the back of a fag packet. To take it from a 15s game, because obviously you couldn't have a 15s tournament, it would take far too long in one day. So his idea was to take it to 7-a-side, and obviously Melrose won the first one. But I think there was more controversy with the Gallians, because it went to extra time and Melrose scored in extra time after 10 minutes or something, but they didn't kick the conversion, and the Gallians were adamant they had to kick the conversion for it to complete the game. So I think it ended in controversy in the end. But these are just legendary stories, and whether they're factually correct, it's been a long distance of time. So it's great to see it evolve, and if you stand still, it might die away. And it's great that Melrose are changing it up and looking at the future and building it into this kind of big corporate event. And not that it hasn't been in the past, but no, it's great to see. And obviously the crowd numbers are still big, and long may that last.
Annually, a couple of days before the Melrose Sevens takes place, a wreath is laid at the grave of Ned Haig. And laying the wreath on this occasion was Melrose President Douglas Brown. A poignant moment to commemorate the founder of the game of sevens legacy. This year, a plaque was unveiled at the side of the main stand to commemorate Ned Haig, and it was unveiled by Richard Scott, the 10th Duke of Buccleuch.
And that will be here long after we are gone. There we are, the Ned Haig.
I think it's thrilling because a real local hero who changed the whole nature of this wonderful sport is being properly celebrated, and he's going to be up on this wall, or his name at least is going to be here for generations to come, and I think that's just so right. It really is wonderful.
And of course the Melrose Sevens means an awful lot to you personally.
Oh, it's thrilling, and the fact that we're coming back again after this enforced year or two of absence makes this particular gathering even more marvellous, and I can't wait to be along here on Saturday and joining the joyful throng watching some wonderful sport.
You've donated a trophy for the player of the tournament. Tell us about that.
Well, I was approached that it was a pity, it seemed, that wonderful sportsmen came here, and inevitably people have their own ideas about who is the player of the match, but I think that having a respected panel of judges choosing and then being able to give something tangible so that we record, who knows, the great legends of the future as well as having played here at Melrose. It seemed like a wonderful idea to me, and I'm thrilled that we're able to help with this trophy.
Ian Cooper is the club historian, having written books on Melrose Rugby Club and the Melrose Sevens.
This year we're celebrating 50 years since the great Gala side. Gala came in 1972 and were on a hat-trick of wins, and with Peter Brown and Doug Paterson in the side, they beat a very good Edinburgh Wanderers side who had to leave it a year to win it again in 1973. But we're fortunate that some of the boys will be along with us on Saturday to celebrate 50 years since they won, and that's the Gala side.
I've been lucky enough to go to Hong Kong Sevens and talk to people on the World Series circuit, and the one thing they want to do in their Sevens career is come to the home of Sevens, which is Melrose.
If we look at the infrastructure for this year, I think people will begin to realise that the town of Melrose will support a tournament being here. The club itself will almost bend over backwards to make sure that the infrastructure is in place. We have a very, very different setup from the usual Southern setup, but it's the fact that we're trying to prove that given the opportunity, we have the ability to put on a show, and hopefully that's exactly what people will see on Saturday.
Some of the earliest footage of the Melrose Sevens is this from 1952, when Melrose beat Stuart's FP 8-5 in the final 70 years ago. The most successful club in terms of wins at the Melrose Sevens are Hawick, who have notched up 28, with Hawick and Wilton also tasting victory in 1888. But Hawick's last win at Melrose Sevens was way back in 1967, well over 50 years ago.
A lovely try, a deceptive change of pace as he first took the ball, and Hawick go ahead by 3-0 with 5 minutes of the first half gone. Out nicely to Jackson. Now Jackson's going to take on Wood, and this will be a real race because Stevenson's going across, but I don't think any of them can catch this young Hawick winger. What a magnificent try and what a burst of pace. Great runaway tries have given them a thoroughly deserved victory.
Melrose have won their own tournament 12 times, and in 1975 they ended a 23-year drought by taking the title with a win over rivals Gala.
Robertson and Dixon, and Robertson just going to win. What a try!
In 1990, the Greenyards witnessed the magic of Australian star David Campese, who came to Melrose with the Randwick team and put Kelso to the sword in the final. It was one of the great tournaments and a privilege for all who attended to see the great man in action.
Gives it on to Campese. Campese out in the open, and he's gone. Absolute magic by Campese. Not only the wonderful support running off the ball, but the angle of his running to take him into the clear.
1999 was the year of Gala's last title at the Melrose Sevens, and they did it the hard way. Gala had been awarded Team of the Year at a function the night before and were a little worse for wear the next day. They also had an extra tie to play as they were drawn in the preliminary round, but beat all before them to land the title and give valuable exposure to a new star in the making called Chris Paterson.
The whole crowd is tectonic feat. Paterson once again scores a magnificent, almost a solo individualist try. Look at the reaction of the crowd. What a star this laddie is.
The last time a Borders team won the Melrose Sevens was in 2011, when Scott White's team beat Hamilton from South Africa in the final, sending the home fans wild. It's the only time this century that a local team have won the big prize, with quality guest sides usually getting their names engraved on the trophy.
Dodging in the corner, that surely is the winner for Melrose. Whoa, and no need for that. And Scott White, a moment of triumph for Melrose Rugby. The cup comes home.
Some great moments from the past, but it's time to focus on the present. And after a 2-year break, many people were focusing on another Melrose Sevens tournament. But this one had only a few months to put together. And I met up with Phil Morris, the tournament director, a few days before the 2022 competition took place.
I think everybody on the back of the last 2 years is excited to be getting back to normality, and the Melrose Sevens is a big part of people's spring calendar. So we've got a great event ahead of us as we've been beginning to release some of the sort of star players that are coming, and I know people are quite excited on the new pitch here at the Green Yards to see guys like Cecil Afrika and real stars of the current world game coming here to Melrose to show us their talents, and I think it's going to be a fantastic day of rugby and a few days of rugby events.
And people have missed it so much.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's amazing, like what a weekend does to people. But yeah, the feedback we've had has been tremendous in terms of just people so excited to be coming back. It's obviously a key part of people's calendar. You know, what are they doing? What are you doing? So I think everyone's just excited to hopefully put the last couple of years behind us and you know, sort of celebrate Rugby Sevens, celebrate the home of Rugby Sevens, and enjoy it in this new environment that's been created in the last few years here at Melrose.
Let's talk about these last 2 years then, where nothing has happened. A lot of work has gone on because you've been hoping to bring a Sevens back the previous year. It never happened, but you know, a lot of work goes into something that never actually happened.
It feels like we've organised 15 events and not actually run one. I mean, it's been a really interesting few years. You know, the ongoing international travel restrictions and places like the Southern Hemisphere not being able to be as fully open, you know, to allow teams to come out. So, yeah, I mean, you've just got to work with what's in front of you. I mean, we're really lucky here at Melrose. The team that runs the Sevens are a great gang of people. Their enthusiasm hasn't waned at all. I mean, every time there's been an obstacle, they've kind of risen to the challenge and got round it. So, you know, really fortunate. People like Abby and Jim Shepherd have made a huge effort to make this event come off, and can't thank those guys enough.
Well, let's talk about Phil Morris now. A lot of people don't know much about you. Tell us your background and how you got involved here at Melrose.
Yeah, so my background, I played rugby when I was growing up, and as a young adult I ended up in Hong Kong, back in about 93, 94, and ended up working for the rugby union there, so got involved heavily. I was on the organising committee for the Hong Kong Sevens and for the Rugby World Cup Sevens. And then met my wife there. She's Scottish, and about 4 years ago I was asked to come and have a look at the Sevens and effectively see if I could help bring it forward. I mean, the club is very reliant on the income of this event, and effectively our outgoings were beginning to more than match our incomings. So the idea effectively was, could I help the club get the incomings from the Sevens to increase. So, you know, I'm a businessman at heart, so I look at this event and, you know, we all want to see the best rugby here at Melrose, but we also need to accept that we've got to sweat the assets a little bit more than we have traditionally. So, you know, there's quite a lot of infrastructure costs. We spend well over £100,000 effectively creating the infrastructure that's required for an event like this, and if we can make that infrastructure do more, then it gives the club more income, and also gives the area more events. So people recognise that if you're going to talk about Sevens, you probably just need to, you know, just chat to Melrose and see what their views are and see where they think the game should be heading in this new world.
Now, of course, a lot of people who don't understand what goes on behind the scenes would think, oh, this is a cash cow for Melrose Club. But you mentioned their infrastructure, 6 figures.
Oh yes, yeah. It racks up quickly, Stuart, and and as people will realise, costs right now are just very volatile and volatile upwards, unfortunately. But yeah, look, it's a big infrastructure spend. I mean, the event, if it's a sunny, successful day, clearly gives a good return to the club. But we're in a very, this is a village effectively of 2,500 people. We're punching way above our weight in terms of what we do as a rugby club, just through our first 15 and through the Southern Nights. So that we don't have the benefit of a big city. We don't have the benefit of a sugar daddy behind the club. We have to make this weekend work so that all the other ambitions that the club has, and I don't know how many Scotland players this club has produced, but it's an awfully big number. And that's because we have a great coaching infrastructure. We've got people like Rob Moffat, who I think our first 15's got a training squad of over 50 people. So, that comes at a cost in terms of, that everything has some kind of expense with it. And so, yes, we take a big risk putting this event on, but hopefully with weather like we see today, people want to come and see these stars of rugby and, their local teams, how they can do against these guys. And, should be fantastic.
There was a special charity game involving some stars of the past in aid of Doddy Weir's Motor Neuron Disease Foundation, as well as a match involving the Southern Knights team based at Melrose. But on the Thursday before the main event, there was a special Melrose Sevens Hall of Fame dinner, where another batch of individuals and teams were inducted into a very exclusive club, including one of the greatest Sevens players ever, Cecil Afrika, and club member Jack Dunn, who was attending his 80th Melrose Sevens tournament. The very busy event was attended by many stars, including former Scottish internationals Keith Robertson, John Jeffrey, Bryan Redpath and Chris Paterson. And we caught up with some of them for a chat to find out what the Melrose Sevens meant to them.
For me, being an international player doesn't mean I was going to be a very good Sevens player. So, because it was in our blood, to come into playing in front of 15,000 people at Melrose was a huge honour, and something that watching the videos back into the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then obviously being able to win it on 2 occasions was amazing. I was told from a young age at 14 I would never make it, so I never necessarily thought I was going to be one of them that could win and captain the side or play international rugby and watch some of these wonderful players play. And I never necessarily thought, that will be me. I always just thought, God, how amazing must that feel to play? And that was the most exciting part, being able to obviously go through the journey throughout the years. Representing the south of Scotland was a massive honour back in the day, and to do that, then build into that Melrose situation where we had so many good players, so many driven individuals that wanted to be successful, and that just linked into it within the Sevens circuit. And then obviously latterly in the late 90s, there was players moving around, the Mark Moncriefs of the world. It was an outstanding Sevens player. Rowan Shepherd playing in the forwards was always then a change from the modern era outside back playing in the forwards. So, for me, Melrose Sevens was one of the biggest events that you could have outside your international honours, along with the south of Scotland, was huge. And Keith Robertson, obviously seeing Keithy tonight, he was one of the players that in training when I was a really young kid, and he was probably 34 at the time, just being able to step me for fun. And I always remembered thinking, I've got him, and then he stepped me in. I still watched it tonight, watched him doing stuff back in the day, and I'm thinking, geez, he done me in training like that. And I can't believe he heard me saying, I've got him. I was saying, I've got Keith, and he stepped me off his right foot and done me, and I was like, geez, I must have seen that about 500 times, over my life. And no, it was a wonderful thing, and it's great to be back in Melrose after now. I've not been back for a long time, and to see the town buzzing a little bit again, see 300 people in here tonight, it's special.
My memories are still so vivid. In all honesty, I was so fortunate to play rugby in a few different places all around the world, and some high profile moments and some high pressure moments, but one of my ultimate kind of favourite memories was at Melrose, winning that. The season we had with Gala was fantastic. Won the Division 2 title, won the Scottish Cup, and then the kind of third thing, almost 3 weeks in a row, was winning here at Melrose in 1999. And the great squad, in all honesty, we'd been awarded Club of the Year at a formal function in Edinburgh on the Friday night beforehand, and Gary Parker was player coach at that time, and he drove the minibus, and we dropped one or two of the players off on the way back down the A7 from Edinburgh and said, listen, we'll see you in the morning. Well, imagine what would happen if we won Melrose. Now, one or two of the players who dropped off had been celebrating the fact that we'd been awarded Team of the Year, and it was a far cry at that point, maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning when he dropped everybody off. And then we played the preliminary round, the first tie on, won that, and just went from strength to strength, beating the three kind of invitational sides of Cambridge, Stellenbosch and then Villager in the final. You know, the first tie in any Sevens tournament, it always will be the hardest in terms of getting that second win, trying to get up to speed. Now, if you're successful in that opening tie, it puts you in the front foot for the next one, because you've played already, and the teams you're playing in that the official first round haven't got their second win. They're trying to find that start, so it works for you. Where it can work against you is towards the end of the tournament, obviously, where the fatigue kicks in. But we were fit. The brand of rugby we played in the 15s unit with that squad, you know, we had to be fit, and we were fit. We just stuck in. We worked hard for each other. Gary, as I say, Gary Parker was coach. He used the squad really well. Rotated the players in and out, and I don't think I got rotated out, actually. I think I maybe had to do the whole lot, but I was young and fresh then. But really great memories of a Division 2, a second division side, really at that time coming together. Nathan Hines had played for us all season, never played sevens before in his life, but was just an absolute natural rugby player. Won almost every kick-off, was able to draw players in and offload, and it was just outstanding, along with kind of quality sevens players. Tom Weir had played a long time. John DL was involved. Davy Gray, Craig Townsend, Kevin Amos. So we had a lot of sevens experience and a bit of bulk in Hines as well.
In the concluding part of our special on the Melrose Sevens, we'll be taking a look at this year's event on the new 3G pitch. Watch two of the guest teams, Samurai and the Quoptimus, in preparation for the big event. We meet up with World 7 superstar Cecil Afrika and find out from the tournament director Phil Morris how it all went. The Melrose Sevens is one of the greatest sporting tournaments in the world. It's been going since 1883, when Jedburgh butcher Ned Haig came up with the idea of an abbreviated game of rugby to raise funds for his club Melrose. Since then, sevens has become an Olympic sport, with a World Cup and a World Series embedded in the rugby calendar. In the second of a two-part programme, we're looking at the Melrose Sevens, which didn't take place due to the pandemic for 2 years. But in April 2022, it returned with a new 3G pitch and floodlights. Among the guest teams appearing were the Quoptimus and Samurai, with holders London Scottish sending a team to defend their title from 2019. Among the stars on the Quoptimus side was Cecil Afrika, the South African flyer who had scored more tries in World Sevens rugby than any other player. The squad prepared for the tournament in front of an excited crowd of local kids who got to join in after the session, something they would remember for the rest of their lives. I spoke with Cecil and also the Quoptimus coach Scott White, a Melrose player who had captained Scotland to victories over New Zealand, South Africa and Fiji in their most successful period when winning the World Series title for the very first time at Twickenham.
Well, Cecil, it is a real pleasure to see you here at the home of the Sevens, Melrose, one of the greatest players of all time. What does it mean to you to be out on the green yards?
On the green yards for me, it's quite a privilege and honour to be here, to be at the home of Rugby Sevens, where everything started, and hopefully I can contribute more memories to the memories that was there already made. So looking forward to this weekend, really excited to go out there and really express myself.
And it's some team the Quoptimus have got out, haven't they? The squad seems to be getting stronger by the day, and you'll be targeting the final, no question.
Most definitely, but we're not going to focus on on that now. We're just trying to focus on what we can do to make sure that we come together as a team, as a collective, and go out and really like enjoy each other's company on the field and make some good memories, because at the end of the day, that is what is going to last forever, you know, the memories that we're going to make here at the Melrose Sevens.
I was going to say, because I mean, it seems incredible that you were playing rugby 10, 12 years ago and you look so fit and healthy now, and you know, you were out there with the kids as well, thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, most definitely, because at the end of the day, I would love to just like share my experience, what I've learned over this 10, 12 season. I've played rugby sevens, and it's nice to share my experience and hopefully and inspire the kids, and one day they can also play for Scotland and make Scotland proud, or maybe win a World Series or win the first Melrose Rugby World Cup, you know.
Now, you mentioned the World Series, and we must bring this up because Scott White, who's your coach, he was in that team that beat South Africa to win the World Series at Twickenham, and you were playing that day. I bet he ribs you over that.
Yeah, he does every single day when he gets opportunity to take a jab at me. He does, but they were really good in that game. They were quite clinical in what they did. They really caught us at the right at the end with a quick kickoff, and then they managed to pick up the ball and play a couple of phases and then score right at the death. And yeah, they really deserved that win. But at the end of the day, we still won the World Series, although they won us in their finals.
But of course, you were about 24-0 ahead, weren't you, at one point?
I'm not particularly sure what the score was, but I know we were quite ahead with a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 tries, and they really came back and really fought the way back and beat us at the end of the day.
Well, I'm not going to rib you about that myself. We're talking about what's happened today, and you literally came off the plane and you came here and you were training with the co-optimists, and also then after that giving plenty of time to the kids, and you looked as if you were having a great time.
Yeah, I came off the plane, I really had some good training sessions today. The morning session was quite pretty chill. The afternoon session was very technical, and then we had opportunity to share our experience with the kids, and hopefully we did inspire them and give them hope just by interacting with them and passing with them and running with them and tackling with them and teach them how to make tackles and how to step someone or how to beat someone one-on-one. So those are the type of stuff that I love to share, and hopefully some of them that take a couple of notes and they can maybe execute it once they get opportunity to play. And hopefully if they do come over this weekend and watch us play, they can keep me accountable if I don't do what I taught them, you know. So really looking forward to this weekend, and I'm looking forward to the games.
Who inspired you then? Because obviously there's lots of kids here today who will be inspired by yourself, but who inspired Cecil Afrika?
I think I got exposed to the game where I grew up in Missionville. You know, we play all kinds of sport, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, whether it's rugby. So that is where I really like find the passion of a rugby, and obviously most of us after Chester Williams played in 1995 Rugby World Cup in South Africa, and he was the first black man obviously to win a Rugby World Cup for South Africa, and he was one of our inspirations and encouraged us to play the game of rugby, you know. And obviously as the years go on and on, then you understand the game, you understand your skill set, you understand, listen, I like this type of player. So over these years I had a different kind of role models, because the more I understood the game, and then I realized this is what my skill set is. So guys who really inspired me was Chester Williams and Christian Cullen.
Yes, some good names there,
yes,
certainly.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to seeing you on this 3G pitch. You must enjoy a 3G pitch, because the speed that you play the game, you will love this sort of thing.
Yeah, I would really love it, but my knees is not good for it yet, because I've only been training only for the first day. Obviously my body will obviously get used to it, because back home we train on grass, and now obviously I'm blessed and fortunate enough to play on this phenomenal pitch, and looking forward to this weekend. Hopefully we can throw the ball around and entertain the people and play some exciting brand of rugby, and that the people can enjoy us.
Well, we can't wait, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with you throughout the course of Saturday. But thanks for joining us and giving us your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
sevens is, you look at it now, it's like two different sports for me in terms of what sevens is to 15s. I had a huge amount of enjoyment through sevens, and look, it was really, really special to be involved in that first one at Twickenham and then go back the following year and go back to back. And then, as you say, the character in the squad that day to be 21-0 down at half time and beat New Zealand. It was hard enough to score one try against them, but to be 21-0 down and win 24-21 was just, that was special.
So plenty of experience for you. You've now kind of hung up the boots, although I still think there's a few games left in you yet. But you're here with the co-optimists, who are red-hot favourites if we read into everything. You've certainly got some stars on the pitch there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had a bit of difficulty this week just with the squad, and obviously South Africans have kind of struggled with their visas. So we've only got, and what the squad will be tomorrow, or the squad in the pay programme will have totally changed to what people have seen it. So we're probably going to have 5 changes in the squad before Saturday comes. But Cecil is here. And it's special for him to be here as well. He's just saying how cool it is for him to be here in Melrose, and I was always quite proud of him on the circuit, and to be able to get him across is pretty cool. We're just here really to facilitate some training for them. We're not here to make them better rugby players. They're all there on their own merit. Obviously, Cecil's been at the top of world sevens. I think the whole thing's just pretty cool for the whole squad to even get the opportunity to be on the same pitch as Cecil. You've got to give them a wee bit of player-led, but if you give them too much, it then potentially comes a wee bit messy. So, for me, it's just setting basic principles of play in place. And as I say, I'm not here to make them better. They're all good players, and just a few common words really as well. So it makes it easier for the guys on pitch on Saturday to react to common language.
There's some good players as well in other teams. There's a strong Samurai side here as well. There's a lot of good club teams. We've seen club teams go all the way in the past, including Melrose, Watsonians, others as well. How do you see this one panning out? Because it's 3G pitch now, isn't it, for the first time? It's going to be much faster than we've ever had.
It'll not suit the big boys this year. No, look, I think there's a huge amount not expectation, but a huge amount of buzz about the place. I think even socially, to then getting people down to just having Melrose Sevens back again. And as you say, look, it's hard to predict. What are Loma Vito going to come with? What are the 70s going to come with? British Army have been in camp since last Sunday. Speaking to Joe Nyatavo, he's up as assistant coach this year. So, I think there's a huge amount of excitement. And, I think one of 6 or 7 teams could win it, and I think that's great for a spectacle for people coming to watch as well.
And do you think we'll ever see the World Series here at Melrose?
Yes.
How soon?
We're going to go for it. I'll say, I'm going to be ambitious. I'll say the World Series will be here by 2026.
Wow, as soon as that?
I think so.
That's good news.
And
what's that based on, Scott?
Just, why would you not? I mean, I think it's a great shame, you've got a game that's invented in Scotland. I think we obviously experienced it in Murrayfield, but for me, putting 7,000-8,000 people into Murrayfield's not got that atmosphere. I think we kind of then struggled, potentially at Scotstoun, but I think, it then sells itself. I think if you're bringing the world's best players to Melrose and you put 8, 9, 10,000 people in here, you get a great buzz. And I think, people would travel because they'd want to come here with being home of sevens, and I think it's got, I don't think you really need to sell that. Now, how we do it or how we achieve it, I'm not really sure, but I mean, for me, it's obviously a great shame since Scotland's lost a leg on the series. I think it's a no-brainer for me.
But the infrastructure in the borders is getting better. We have a railway station now. There's hotels popping up everywhere. We can do it, can't we?
Oh no, definitely. I think that is probably the one downside to it, Stuart. I mean, when you go touring the world, you're getting 16 teams in the same hotel. And if you look at that in Scotland, we'd struggle to do that. You're talking 16 people with each squad and 16 teams. I mean, that's a lot of beds to find. And, I don't know if then there's a possibility you can split it between 2 or 3 different hotels. Logistically, it'd be very hard to probably pull that off. But, as you say, you've got the railway line now, you're well connected. You've obviously got Cardrona at Peebles. You've got, obviously, the Roxborough's getting a new development down at Kelso. So there's obviously nice hotels out there that I'm sure if people, sat down around a table, that they could definitely get something in place.
And you could certainly get all the schools involved, like being part of a team, being attached to a team, and all that kind of thing going on.
Look, and I think now you've got the lights, you've got the 4G, so now you can play in the dark. You can have big tournaments, and I think the whole thing you could make as a spectacle, as you say. You could get schools involved to represent teams. You could have an under-16s comp, you could have an under-18s comp, and make it a real kind of rugby festival.
The Samurai squad are known as the barbarians of the sevens world, attracting top quality players and entering all the big competitions the world over. Their appearance at Melrose marked their own 25th anniversary, and their director of rugby, Terry Sands, was inducted into the Melrose Sevens Hall of Fame to recognise the team's contribution to the game.
Words can't express, to be honest, how proud I am. I was surprised, but very, very proud. You know, Melrose Sevens being the home of sevens, and to come up on such an occasion, just come back after COVID and seeing Melrose in all its glory last night. I was really proud, and a special time.
It is, because that special time is the 25th anniversary of Samurai, and you put it all together, obviously 25 years ago. You're kind of like the barbarian sevens. That's what I've always called you, because it's a guest invitational side of quality, giving youngsters a chance to mix with the stars, and you go all over the world.
Yeah, I think that's a good description, barbarians. That's pretty much exactly what we are, and yeah, you know, been going for 25 years, and that's something else that we're proud of. And you know, we are a special family, and you know, I got that award last night, but to be honest, there's so many people that have given their time. You know, it's all voluntary. You know, we're non-profit making, and when I think about all the people that have put their time in and helped players progress from, you know, 18-year-old kids go through and represent their country, and there's so many of those, and all the support staff that are with us as well, and you know, 25 years of it, and for that to come together, and now we find ourselves at the home of sevens, you know, the Melrose Sevens. We couldn't have wrote the script, really.
And so to the big day itself. A healthy crowd enjoyed around 8 hours of rugby, with two Borders teams out of the 24 competing, Melrose and Jed Forest, reaching the quarter-finals. Melrose beat Belgium in their quarter-final, while Jed went out to Samurai, who also took the scalp of Melrose in their semi-final. There was controversy when the Quoptimists lost to Curry after the first red card ever at a Melrose Sevens was shown to their player Freddie Owsley for an off-the-ball incident. Playing most of the game with 6 men didn't help their cause, and the favourites were out. The red card was rescinded a few days later, but the damage was done. Curry lost to the British Army in the other semi-final, so it would be two guest sides battling it out in the final game of the 2022 Melrose Sevens. Samurai took on the British Army in the final and scored 2 converted tries in the match, but the better prepared, well-drilled Army team eventually ran out winners 26-14 to lift the title and create their own piece of history. They will no doubt be back next year to try and defend their title, and they thoroughly deserved their win by beating Samurai, Curry, 70s and Stirling County. For many, it was good to see some kind of normality return after the 2-year absence. It was time for the dust to settle and thoughts to be gathered by tournament director Phil Morris when I met up with him a few days later at a far quieter Greenyards to get his assessment of the weekend's events.
Well, Phil, here we are on a Tuesday morning now, a few days on from the Melrose Sevens. It's all very quiet now. It was very different back on Saturday. You've had time to reflect now. What's your own thoughts?
I think overall, Stuart, it was a big success, which is the main thing. I think from a strategic perspective, in terms of the things that we changed, the idea of those changes in principle all seem to work. Obviously, the execution of lots of things, like any event, can always be improved. But overall, the quality of the rugby here on the 3G pitch was fantastic. Probably the best we've had here at the Greenyards for the Sevens for a number of years. It was great to see some real superstars of the game showing their skills. I thought the final could easily have been an international final. It really was a high quality game. It was good to see two Scottish sides get to the semis and show just how good some of the local players are and how competitive they can be. From a spectacle, it was a great spectacle for the crowd. I think the fan zone was a big success. The hospitality for those that were entertained in that way was very successful. And from a health and safety perspective, it was a very safe event. I think there was no overcrowding in any particular places. you can always look at things that we could do better, but overall, I think the big thing is it got the Melrose Sevens back on the map after a 3-year hiatus, and has got us a platform to build on going into 2023.
I was so impressed actually because I could see what was happening, with the visas and obviously the non-appearance of some of the high-profile names. Now most people would have been tearing their hair out, but you've still got some hair.
Yeah, lucky genetics, I think, Stuart. But yeah, look, it was. It's frustrating, when you've put a lot of work in and you have announced that certain people are going to be coming, and then they can't come. But that's the world we're living in at the moment. There's so much uncertainty. We've just got to ride the waves that come our way. And what I would say is, some of the players that I'd not heard of before coming along to this tournament, my gosh, there was some real talent out there. And the finalists, both Samurai and British Army, were full of players that many people wouldn't have heard of before, who really showed just how much depth there is in rugby across the UK.
And of course, British Army winning was a bit under the radar, wasn't it?
Fair play to them. Fair play to them. What a great team. I think what we hadn't realised and only found out afterwards, they've been in camp for a couple of weeks. I know Samurai don't have that sort of privilege, to coming together as an invitational team quite quickly. British Army are a well-organised, well-structured team, but they still had some exceptional individuals. And the Melrose Belgium game was one of my favourites. I thought was a really high-quality game. And again, I don't think people would necessarily take Belgium as being a great sevens team, but they produced some good rugby there.
Now, what about the future then? What do you take forward onto next year? Because we've now got the 3G pitch, the floodlights and everything else. I know, talking to you before, there's lots of plans. It's how you actually put those plans into action for next year.
Yeah, I think going into 2023, we've got a lot of options ahead of us. I mean, the main thing we wanted to achieve this year was to get the tournament back on the map and back on people's social calendar. And I think that happened. We've now got to go and have a bit of a look at how we best structure an event in this amateur, semi-pro and professional era that gives everybody a good chance of showing their skills and winning. It's obviously important that we have an opportunity for the Scottish teams to get as far in the tournament as they can. And I think these guys also want to stretch themselves. They want to play against the best players. So, we've got to come up with a format now that allows this tournament to place itself in this modern era in the best way possible, and recognising the change that has occurred in rugby. We're very fortunate to have the facility in the 3G pitch. I think what we have demonstrated is that the Melrose Sevens doesn't necessarily need to be one day. Exactly what we present in 2023, I think will need to be decided in the next 6 to 10 weeks. And I think it's exciting. We're in a very fortunate position where people, we've had so many inquiries already of teams wanting to come next year. This is still a highly sought after venue, and we just want to put on an event that the people that come and attend, both playing and watching, can go away and go, that was great. Yeah.
And it's interesting the point that you made there about the club players want to play against the best. And of course, if you had like a club competition on the Saturday and a semi-pro on the Sunday, then they're not going to get that opportunity. However, on the flip side of that is we get more local clubs, Scottish clubs, in the club environment, having a chance of actually getting up there and holding the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it became very clear talking to the players that they want to just play the best rugby they can and stretch themselves. They want to be on a field with the likes of Cecil Afrika and Freddie Owsley and these other names that they can go away and recognise. They love playing in front of a big crowd. I think all the teams effectively gave us that feedback. So we just need to come up with a format that works for everybody whilst not pitting, very big professionals against amateur players and creating an unfair situation from a health and safety perspective. So, it's an interesting debate coming up in the next few weeks, one I'm looking forward to, and I know lots of people have got lots of opinions, but we look forward to letting everybody know, the format we think's best for 2023 in the coming weeks.
And presumably that means a debrief with obviously your staff members, the Melrose people, other clubs, other officials, a lot of talking to be done.
Yeah, look, plenty of people in this area like to share their opinions, Stu, you probably know that, and plenty have already shared their opinions. So, obviously we welcome any feedback. We're all after the same goal here, which is trying to position Melrose Sevens as the custodian of the game and coming up with a format that works. And, that's something that we'll continue to try and evolve in the coming years.
And that work starts now?
Absolutely.